In a small town nestled deep within the woods, there was an old, abandoned mansion that everyone whispered about. They said it was cursed, that anyone who dared enter would never return the same. One stormy night, a group of adventurous teenagers decided to test their bravery. Armed with flashlights and nervous laughter, they crept through overgrown bushes and broken gates to reach the mansion's looming entrance. Inside, the air was thick with must and shadows danced ominously on the walls. They ventured cautiously through dusty corridors, their footsteps echoing eerily. As they explored deeper, strange noises began to echo around them. A whisper here, a creak there. One by one, they started to disappear. First, it was Sarah who wandered off down a dark hallway, her screams fading into the distance. Then, Alex, who swore he saw something move behind a cracked mirror. Each disappearance left the remaining friends more terrified and desperate to escape. Finally, only Emily remained. She found herself in a dimly lit room filled with antique furniture and moth-eaten tapestries. The air grew colder, and a sense of dread settled over her like a heavy blanket. Just as she turned to leave, a figure materialized in the doorway. A pale, gaunt figure with hollow eyes and a tattered gown. Frozen in fear, Emily could only watch as the figure glided towards her, its cold breath sending shivers down her spine. With a voice like the rustling of dry leaves, it whispered, "Leave this place, before it claims you too." Emily ran, stumbling through the mansion's labyrinthine halls, the ghostly figure pursuing her every step. She burst out into the stormy night, rain lashing at her face, heart pounding in her chest. Behind her, the mansion loomed, its dark windows staring like empty eyes. To this day, Emily swears she can still hear the whispers in the wind, feel the cold touch of that ghostly figure. And the old mansion? It remains standing, a silent sentinel in the woods, waiting for its next unsuspecting visitors to wander too close. Months passed since that terrifying night at the mansion. Emily tried to convince herself it was all a fevered dream brought on by fear and imagination. She avoided the woods and the town's gossip about the cursed mansion, focusing on school and her friends, trying to bury the memory deep within. But eerie things began to happen. Emily would wake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, convinced she could hear faint whispers calling her name. Shadows seemed to move in the corners of her vision, and sometimes, when she glanced into mirrors, she caught glimpses of a ghostly figure standing behind her. A figure with hollow eyes and a tattered gown. Her friends noticed the change in her demeanor. They tried to reassure her, telling her it was just stress, but Emily knew better. The mansion had marked her, somehow, its presence lingering in her life like a dark cloud. One evening, as Emily was walking home from school, she decided to confront her fears head-on. She couldn't shake the feeling that the mansion was calling to her, drawing her back like a moth to a flame. With trembling hands, she retraced the path through the woods, the trees whispering secrets and the wind carrying faint echoes of distant cries. When she reached the mansion, it stood silent and foreboding against the twilight sky. The front door creaked open as if welcoming her back. Emily hesitated for a moment, her heart racing, but something compelled her forward, a mixture of dread and curiosity. Inside, the mansion seemed darker than before, its walls closing in on her with unseen weight. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and Emily's footsteps echoed like thunder in the empty halls. She wandered through rooms she vaguely remembered from that fateful night, her pulse quickening with each step. Then, she heard it, a soft sobbing coming from upstairs. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she climbed the creaking staircase, each step groaning under her weight. The sobbing grew louder, more desperate, echoing through the corridors like a mournful lament. At the top of the stairs, Emily found herself in front of a door slightly ajar. The sobbing came from within, echoing in the silence like a haunting melody. With trembling hands, she pushed the door open. Inside was a small, dusty room bathed in moonlight filtering through cracked windows. In the corner, huddled on the floor, was a figure. A young woman with long, tangled hair and torn clothes, her face buried in her hands. Emily approached slowly, her heart aching with sympathy and fear. "Hello?" she whispered, unsure if the woman could even hear her. The woman looked up, her eyes wide with terror and sadness. "Please," she whispered hoarsely, "help me." Before Emily could react, the mansion groaned around them, walls shaking as if awakening from a long slumber. Dust fell from the ceiling like snowflakes, and the air grew heavy with a sense of impending doom. "We must leave," Emily urged, extending a trembling hand to the woman. But as the woman reached out to take Emily's hand, a sudden gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing the flickering candlelight. In the darkness, Emily felt a cold, bony hand close around her wrist, a hand that was not the woman's. With a scream, Emily struggled to break free, but the grip tightened, icy fingers digging into her flesh. "You cannot leave," a voice whispered, chilling and ancient, resonating from the very walls of the mansion. Desperate, Emily fought against the unseen force, her mind racing with terror. She could feel the mansion's malevolent presence closing in around her, suffocating her like a thick fog. The woman's cries echoed in the darkness, lost amidst the swirling shadows. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The grip on Emily's wrist vanished, and the room fell silent once more. Trembling, she stumbled back, tears streaming down her face. She fled the mansion that night, running faster than she ever had before, not daring to look back. The woods seemed to stretch on forever, the trees whispering secrets that she could no longer decipher. When she finally reached the town, she collapsed in front of her friends, gasping for breath, her body trembling with exhaustion and fear. From that day on, Emily never spoke of what happened inside the mansion. But the whispers in the wind followed her wherever she went, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of reality. And the old mansion? It remained standing, its secrets buried within its crumbling walls, waiting patiently for the next unsuspecting visitor to stumble upon its cursed grounds. Years passed, and Emily tried her best to move on from the horrors she experienced at the mansion. She left the small town behind, seeking solace in the bustling anonymity of the city. Yet, despite her efforts to bury the memories deep within, the echoes of that fateful night persisted. She threw herself into her studies and later into her career, finding comfort in the structured routine of urban life. But every now and then, when she least expected it, she would catch a glimpse of a shadow out of the corner of her eye, a fleeting reminder of the mansion's lingering presence. One evening, while working late in her office, Emily received an unexpected email. The sender's name was unfamiliar, but the subject line sent a chill down her spine. "Return to the mansion." Her heart raced as she hesitantly clicked open the email. Inside was a single line of text. "You must come back. The darkness is spreading." Emily's hands trembled as she stared at the screen, her mind racing with questions. Who had sent the email? What did they mean by the darkness? Despite every instinct screaming at her to ignore it, curiosity and a gnawing sense of unfinished business drew her back to the town she had once fled. The journey was long and arduous, the memories of the mansion haunting her every step of the way. When she finally arrived, the town appeared unchanged, frozen in time, like a photograph from her past. She avoided familiar faces, afraid of what they might say or ask. Instead, she made her way silently through the streets, the weight of impending dread settling like a cloak around her shoulders. Night had fallen by the time Emily reached the outskirts of the woods. The path to the mansion was overgrown, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The moon cast an eerie glow through the skeletal branches, illuminating the familiar silhouette of the mansion in the distance. As she approached, Emily felt a chill run down her spine. The mansion loomed before her, its windows dark and foreboding against the night sky. She hesitated at the threshold, her pulse quickening with each step closer to the cursed grounds. Inside, the mansion seemed colder, more desolate than she remembered. The walls whispered secrets of forgotten tragedies, and the floorboards groaned under her weight as if mourning the souls lost within its confines. Emily retraced her steps through the maze-like corridors, her footsteps echoing like a heartbeat in the stillness. Memories flooded her mind, of fear and desperation, of whispered warnings and ghostly apparitions. She found herself standing once more in the room where she had encountered the tormented spirit years before. But this time the room was empty. The air hung heavy with anticipation, a palpable sense of unease filling the space. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she scanned the shadows, half expecting the ghostly figure to materialize once more. Suddenly, a faint sound reached her ears, a soft sobbing, barely audible over the creaking of the old mansion. Emily followed the sound, her heart pounding in her chest, until she found herself standing before a hidden door at the end of a forgotten corridor. With trembling hands, she pushed the door open. Inside was a small chamber bathed in flickering candlelight. The air was thick with the scent of incense and old parchment, the walls adorned with faded tapestries depicting scenes of forgotten lore. At the center of the room knelt a figure, a young woman with pale skin and dark, tangled hair cascading over her shoulders. She wore a simple gown of white, her eyes closed in silent prayer. "Who are you?" Emily whispered, her voice barely audible in the stillness. The woman's eyes fluttered open, revealing depths of sorrow and wisdom beyond her years. "I am Isabel," she replied softly, "guardian of this place, keeper of its secrets." Emily's brow furrowed in confusion. What secrets? Isabel's gaze turned towards the ancient tome resting beside her, its pages yellowed with age and bound in cracked leather. "The darkness that haunts these walls," she murmured. "It seeks release, a way into our world." Emily's heart sank as she realized the gravity of Isabel's words. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. Isabel rose slowly, her movements graceful yet burdened with sorrow. "There is a ritual," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "A ritual that can seal the darkness away, but it requires a sacrifice." Emily's blood ran cold. "A sacrifice? What kind of sacrifice?" Isabel's eyes met hers, filled with an unspoken sorrow. "A willing soul," she murmured. "Someone who understands the price of keeping the darkness at bay." Silence enveloped them like a shroud as Emily processed Isabel's words. Fear and determination warred within her, knowing what had to be done yet uncertain of the consequences. The mansion's dark history loomed over them, a shadowy specter waiting for its moment to strike. And outside, the wind began to howl, carrying with it the echoes of distant cries and whispered warnings. Emily stood in the dimly lit chamber, grappling with the weight of Isabel's revelation. The air was heavy with the scent of ancient incense, mingling with the faint mustiness of the mansion's neglected corridors. Outside, the wind continued its mournful howl, a haunting accompaniment to the solemn conversation inside. Isabel's gaze remained steady, her eyes conveying a mixture of resignation and resolve. "The darkness within these walls is ancient," she began, her voice barely more than a whisper. "It seeks to break free, to unleash its malevolence upon the world. The ritual can bind it once more, but it requires a sacrifice, a willing soul to bear the burden." Emily's mind raced as she tried to comprehend the enormity of Isabel's words. She had fled the mansion once before, desperate to escape its haunting presence. Yet now, fate had drawn her back, entangling her once more in its web of secrets and despair. "What happens if we don't perform the ritual?" Emily asked, her voice trembling with apprehension. Isabel's expression darkened, shadows dancing across her features in the flickering candlelight. "The darkness will continue to spread," she replied gravely. "It will seek out souls to corrupt, twisting them into its servants. It will feed on fear and despair, growing stronger with each passing day." A shiver ran down Emily's spine as she considered the implications. The darkness that had haunted her dreams, that had whispered in the wind. Could it truly be contained? And at what cost? "We need to stop it," Emily said firmly, her voice steadying with newfound resolve. "I'll do whatever it takes." Isabel nodded solemnly, her eyes reflecting gratitude mixed with sorrow. "Then you must prepare yourself," she said, gesturing towards the ancient tome resting on the makeshift altar. The ritual requires purity of heart and strength of spirit. It will test your resolve like nothing before. Emily approached the altar, her fingers trembling as she traced the intricate runes carved into its surface. The pages of the tome were filled with cryptic symbols and faded illustrations, a testament to centuries of lore and forgotten knowledge. Isabel guided Emily through the ritual, explaining each step with quiet reverence. They gathered ingredients, herbs and oils imbued with protective magic, crystals charged with ancient power. They traced circles and symbols on the chamber floor, creating a barrier against the encroaching darkness. As the ritual progressed, Emily felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. The mansion's oppressive atmosphere seemed to recede, replaced by a focused determination to see the task through to its end. She closed her eyes and recited incantations passed down through generations, her voice steady despite the weight of uncertainty that lingered in her heart. Outside, the wind began to howl with renewed intensity, rattling windows and rustling leaves. Shadows danced on the walls, their movements frantic and unpredictable. Isabel's presence beside her was a comforting anchor amidst the gathering storm, her unwavering faith a guiding light in the darkness. At last, they reached the final step of the ritual, the moment of sacrifice. Isabel handed Emily a dagger, its blade glinting in the dim light. "You must offer a part of yourself," Isabel explained softly, "a symbol of your commitment, your willingness to bear the burden." Emily took the dagger with trembling hands, her mind racing with doubts and fears. Yet she knew there was no turning back. Not now, when so much hung in the balance. She closed her eyes and steadied her breathing, summoning the courage to make the ultimate sacrifice. With a swift motion, Emily drew the blade across her palm, a sharp sting followed by a warm trickle of blood. She offered her hand over the altar, watching as drops of crimson fell onto the ancient tome, mingling with the symbols etched into its pages. The chamber filled with a pulsating energy, a tangible manifestation of the ritual's power. Emily felt a surge of adrenaline, a rush of exhilaration mingled with fear. The mansion seemed to groan and tremble around them, as if acknowledging the ancient pact being forged within its walls. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the ritual was complete. The air grew still, the oppressive weight lifting from Emily's shoulders. She collapsed to her knees, exhausted yet strangely elated. Isabel knelt beside her, offering a reassuring hand. "It is done," she said softly, her voice tinged with relief. "The darkness has been bound once more." Emily looked around the chamber, the sense of dread that had haunted her for so long replaced by a cautious hope. The mansion no longer felt like a prison of malevolent spirits. It was a sanctuary, a testament to the strength of those who dared to confront their fears. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden glow through the mansion's dusty windows, Emily knew that her journey was far from over. The scars of her ordeal would linger, reminders of the darkness she had faced and the sacrifices she had made. But for now, in this fleeting moment of peace, she allowed herself to breathe a sigh of relief. The curse that had plagued the mansion for centuries had been thwarted, for now. And as she stood amidst the ruins of her past, Emily dared to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, there was hope for redemption after all. And so, with a heart heavy yet hopeful, Emily stepped out of the mansion's shadowed halls and into the light of a new day. But legends have a way of enduring, and the mansion's story was far from over. Its secrets remained buried within its crumbling walls, waiting for the next chapter in its dark and storied history to unfold. To this day, the mansion stands as a silent sentinel in the heart of the woods, its weathered facade a testament to the resilience of those who dared to challenge the darkness within. And though its halls may be empty, its legacy lives on, a cautionary tale of the dangers that lurk in the shadows and the courage it takes to confront them. As for Emily, she carries the memory of that fateful night with her always, a reminder of the strength she found in the face of fear. And though she may never fully escape the mansion's haunting legacy, she knows that she is not alone, that somewhere, in the depths of the forest, a guardian watches over its ancient secrets, waiting for the day when darkness may rise again. Years passed since Emily's encounter with the mansion and the ritual that bound the darkness within its walls. She had moved on with her life, finding solace in her career and friendships. Yet the memories of that fateful night continued to linger in the corners of her mind. Despite her best efforts to forget, the mansion's presence remained a specter in her dreams, a constant reminder of the darkness she had faced and the sacrifices she had made. Emily had tried to find closure, seeking answers in books and folklore. But the truth remained elusive, buried beneath layers of myth and uncertainty. One evening, while sorting through old boxes in her apartment, Emily stumbled upon a faded journal tucked away in a forgotten corner. Its leather cover was worn and weathered, pages yellowed with age and ink faded to almost illegibility. Curiosity piqued. She carefully opened the journal, her fingers tracing the delicate script that filled its pages. The journal belonged to Isabel, the guardian of the mansion, chronicling centuries of history and the struggle against the darkness that had threatened to consume it. As Emily read through the entries, a sense of unease settled over her. The mansion's curse was far older and more insidious than she had ever imagined. Isabel's words spoke of ancient rituals and forgotten battles, of guardians past who had sacrificed everything to keep the darkness at bay. Emily learned of the mansion's origins, a place of power built upon a nexus of ley lines, drawing energies both light and dark from the earth itself. But there was more. Hidden within the journal were clues, fragments of prophecy and cryptic warnings that hinted at a greater threat still looming on the horizon. The darkness, it seemed, was not defeated but merely contained, a shadow waiting patiently for its chance to strike once more. Driven by a newfound determination, Emily delved deeper into Isabel's writings, piecing together the fragments of a puzzle that spanned centuries. She sought out ancient texts and whispered legends, following trails that led her deep into the heart of folklore and myth. Along the way, she encountered others who had crossed paths with the mansion, historians and scholars, seekers of truth who shared tales of inexplicable phenomena and inexplicable disappearances. Each story added a layer to the tapestry of mystery that surrounded the mansion, weaving a complex web of intrigue and danger. As Emily's quest continued, she began to sense a pattern, an ominous convergence of events that threatened to unleash the darkness once more. Shadows seemed to gather at the edges of her vision, whispers echoing in the wind that spoke of an ancient evil stirring from its slumber. With each revelation, Emily's resolve grew stronger. She knew now that the mansion's curse was not just a local legend but a harbinger of something far more sinister. The darkness hungered for release, its malevolent presence reaching out from the shadows to claim unsuspecting souls. Armed with knowledge and determination, Emily returned to the town where her journey had begun. The familiar streets greeted her with a mix of nostalgia and trepidation, whispers of the mansion's curse following in her wake. She sought out allies, those who had faced the darkness and lived to tell the tale, each with their own scars and secrets. Together, they formed a fragile alliance, a fellowship bound by a shared mission to uncover the truth and prevent the darkness from rising once more. They combed through archives and ancient tomes, deciphering prophecies and unraveling mysteries that had long been buried beneath layers of secrecy. But time was running out. As the days grew shorter and shadows lengthened, Emily and her allies sensed a growing urgency, a palpable sense of impending doom that hung heavy in the air. The mansion, once a silent sentinel in the heart of the woods, had become a focal point in their battle against the encroaching darkness. And so, under the cover of night, they ventured once more into the depths of the forest, their footsteps echoing in the silence as they approached the mansion's looming silhouette. The air crackled with tension, a tangible sense of anticipation mingled with fear. Inside, the mansion seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, its corridors twisting and turning like a labyrinth of nightmares. They encountered traps and illusions, manifestations of the mansion's dark power that sought to test their resolve and divide their ranks. But Emily pressed on, her heart pounding with determination. She knew that their journey would lead them to the heart of the mansion, to the source of the darkness that threatened to consume everything in its path. At last, they reached the chamber where Emily had performed the ritual years before. The air was thick with ancient magic, a maelstrom of light and shadow that danced around them like wraiths in the night. Emily could feel the mansion's dark presence looming closer, its hunger for release palpable in the air. As they prepared to confront the darkness once and for all, Emily felt a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of reassurance from Isabel, whose spirit lingered as a guide and guardian in their darkest hour. Together, they stood united against the encroaching tide of shadows, their hearts intertwined in a shared purpose. And as the final battle began, Emily summoned the strength of generations past, the courage and sacrifice of those who had come before her. With each step forward, she felt the weight of destiny upon her shoulders, knowing that the fate of the world hung in the balance. The battle raged on, a clash of light and darkness that echoed through the mansion's haunted halls. Emily and her allies fought with every ounce of strength they possessed, their spirits unyielding in the face of overwhelming odds. But in the end, it was Emily who stood alone before the heart of the darkness, a swirling vortex of malevolent energy that threatened to engulf everything in its path. With a final surge of determination, she raised the ancient tome high above her head, its pages shimmering with a protective aura. With a triumphant cry, Emily unleashed the power contained within the tome, a blinding burst of light that pierced the darkness and banished it back into the depths from whence it came. The mansion trembled and groaned, its cursed foundations shaken to their core. And as the dust settled and silence descended once more, Emily knew that the darkness had been defeated. For now, the mansion stood silent and still, its haunted halls finally at peace. But Emily knew that the battle was far from over. The mansion's legacy would endure, a reminder of the courage and sacrifice required to confront the darkness within and emerge victorious. She would continue to guard its secrets, ensuring that its dark past remained buried beneath layers of time and myth. And as she stood amidst the ruins of her journey, Emily felt a sense of closure, a peace that she had long sought but never fully attained. The mansion's curse had been broken, its darkness vanquished by the strength of those who dared to defy its grasp. As she turned to leave, the sun began to rise over the horizon, a new dawn breaking over the horizon of possibilities and a future free from the shadows of the past. But legends have a way of enduring, and the mansion's story was far from over. Its secrets remained buried within its crumbling walls, waiting for the next chapter in its dark and storied history to unfold. And Emily? She carried the memory of her journey with her always, a testament to the strength she found in the face of fear and the bonds forged in the heat of battle. As she walked away from the mansion, she knew that she was not alone, that somewhere, in the depths of the forest, a guardian watched over its ancient secrets, ready to confront whatever darkness may rise again. But that, my friend, is a tale for another time.